I mean, you're obviously too young to remember the 70s in any great detail. It takes me back to the 70s when on your way to doing your job, or whatever it is that you do, you pass a load of people holding up signs because they're picketing something.
Yes, I'm interested that you saw that for yourself this morning. I mean, it's a very lovely day if you happen to be trying to make a dramatic political point on a picket line. Not a very lovely day if you were due to be having an operation that you've probably waited months, if not over a year, to have, and you suddenly discover that you are one of many thousands, tens of thousands of people today who are not going to get the care that they have been desperately waiting for because nurses are on strike, in an unprecedented and quite an extraordinary decision. I think a lot of people are quite conflicted in their views on this. There's huge public sympathy for the case that nurses are making to be paid better. But most people, I think, feel that 19% is probably too much. And there's something that just feels fundamentally wrong about those who have dedicated themselves to making sick people better, actually taking that drastic decision not to be at those bedsides.
Yes, I think that is what a lot of people will see. And I mean, I'm surprised that some other people are surprised that the support for this particular nurses' strike is not as high as they expected it to be. People would have expected it to be 75, 80%, but it's not. It's around about 50, 55%. Because I think people see that not all nurses are striking. You know, it's very clear that the people who lead the Royal College of Nursing are part of the kind of Mick Lynch brigade of rather extreme left-wing union leaders, and they're all about bringing down the Tory government. And I accept that, you know, I know you and I were talking about this last night, some people would say they should get more money. But, you know, I don't understand how anyone who works in the medical sector, who is supposed to be given the responsibility to care for others, would ever abandon that care. And that's effectively what these picketers are doing.
And I think a lot of doctors in NHS settings today are feeling very, very conflicted and quite angry as well. I received a message last night from an oncologist who works in a London NHS trust to say he had just received an email from the British Medical Association, of which he was a member. Now, nobody should make any mistake as to what the BMA is. It's not something that's focused on patient care. It's very much a trade union that often cloaks itself in the colours of an organisation that's all altruistic and about you and I. But in fact, it is a trade union and quite a militant one at that.
Yes.
BMA wrote to doctors yesterday asking them and encouraging them to support the nurses' strike. And my oncologist contact said he was resigning from the BMA forthwith because he is so furious at the action that's being taken.
Yeah.
And the irony of all of this is that the nurses who are complaining about their workload, and frankly, very justifiably so in many cases, are only going to have a heavier workload when they come back, because even one day of missed activity in the NHS has catastrophic consequences on the backlog of procedures and consultations that we're already facing.
Oh, exactly right. And you hear many anecdotal stories from inside hospitals. You know, there are plenty of people who work in the nursing business that we speak to here at talkTV, and many of them have different stories to tell. But what I don't see and I don't get from people who go to hospitals on a regular basis as well, with family members and whatever, what I don't get is a sense that they're all in despair, that they're all literally sitting exhausted, you know, at their nursing stations, weeping every single hour of every single day. That's not what it's like inside a hospital. Hospitals work as businesses. They're very badly run. We know that. But what we also know is that if these people's narrative is correct, the NHS is hurting people, is killing people, is being negligent in its treatment of people, and is incapable of actually making anybody better. That's what they're telling us. And if that's been the case for as long as they say it has been, surely they should have done something before now.
Well, unfortunately, I think quite a few of those things on that list of doom that you read out are actually true. I mean, it is a fact that the NHS does kill people. There are several so-called never events, what's in the NHS known as a never event, things that should absolutely not happen in any hospital that take place on a weekly basis across the health service. It is catastrophically understaffed. We know that from the number of job vacancies. But at the same time, you know, I do go on about this, but I think it is really important. They're offering six-figure salaries for jobs with titles like Director of Lived Experience. That is an actual job advert. Director of Lived Experience. It's a six-figure salary in an NHS trust somewhere up in the Midlands. And I mean, what even is that? Well, I had a look at it. It seems to be a job that involves piecing together everything that everybody knows from having been in the NHS for a while. Well, surely everybody that works in their roles should be doing that anyway. I'm a bit bewildered by that.
Yes, exactly right. I mean, look at this, for example. I mean, I've been talking about this for a while. There's lots of parts of the country where there was not enough votes for strike action to enable it to happen. One of them is Warrington and Halton Teaching Hospitals, NHS Foundation. It said at least 50% of union members are needed to take part in a strike ballot for it to count. We've been informed by the RCN that the number of members who voted at Warrington and Halton Teaching Hospitals was less than the 50% required to proceed, so therefore they will not be striking. And this is being repeated in lots and lots of different areas around the country. And my argument to support what I've been saying is that if every single nurse was under pressure, if they feel as if they're at the end of their tether, then why are they not all voting to strike? Because clearly they're not all in that situation.
Yes, and you know, we should all be, I suppose, grateful for those that aren't striking, and no doubt some of them are getting quite a lot of grief from their more militant colleagues for that decision. It puts everybody in a difficult position, doesn't it? Because it can take some bravery if all your colleagues are voting one way for you to say, actually, no, I'm not doing this. And I think the other important thing to remember about nurses, and I mean this in no disparaging way, but they're not all angels. You know, they exhibit the full range of human frailties and weaknesses that the rest of us do.
Yeah.
And when you're in a hospital setting, I mean, there is a lot of standing around. I'm not being funny, but there's an awful lot of having cups of tea around the nurses and chit-chat. You know, I've been in a number of hospitals and obviously with elderly relatives. And yes, people are working hard, but there are also awful lot of people who are diverted on things that they don't need to be doing, far too much paperwork and shuffling things around. And so, in a sense, what we need is a review of the allocation of existing resources rather than the endless cry to pile more resources in.
Exactly right. We're going to take a short break in a moment, but here is a couple of messages that I'm getting this morning. Leslie has sent this in on the text. I visited my brother in hospital after a stroke and I couldn't sit him up for a drink, so I asked a passing male nurse to help. His response was, I don't work on that side of the ward. And someone from Carol who says, I'm a nurse of 51 years standing and a member of the RCN. They no longer represent me and my principles. This is not the way to get a pay rise by causing suffering and death. I mean, you know, I think nurses are very split on this, even inside their own union. So it's a fascinating situation. Stay with us, Isabel. We've got other things to talk about as well. Isabel Oakeshott is here, talkTV's international editor. We'll take loads of your calls as well. If you're involved in a nurses' dispute, or if you are a member of the family of somebody in one, or even if you've been in hospital today, or you're trying to get to one, do let us know. 0344 499 1000. This is the Independent Republic of Mike Graham.